contacting our elected officials and telling them no nuclear, no data centers, and to hold Poltech accountable to decommissioning Indian Point. Before we get into the action steps, I wanted to take some time to, hear your questions and concerns about what's going on at Indian Point. If anything you'd like to ask the speakers, we have, about 10 minutes to do so, and then we'll talk more about action steps. So, yeah, let me pass the mic.
We just went through the primary situation, and I didn't hear any of these issues brought up. I don't know who stands for what, and I'm concerned that Lawler obviously has a vested interest in seeing these things happen. What's process on the Democrat side is going to happen to try to make this an issue and get comment and discussion going before the November election?
So I'm really glad you're bringing this up, Henry, and it's something that Courtney Williams, who's the co-founders of WAS, and has brought up. And so we plan to have a debate, and that will probably most likely be at the Stony Point Center, and it will be between the Democratic Party nominee, Kay Connolly, and Mike Lawler.
Okay.
And so he plans to have this as part of his platform. He sent out push polls to me. I got one, I can't believe it, about Indian Point, and about the messaging on Indian Point. So we are going to be taking this on, and some of the other groups will have to be C4, basically, to be able to co-sponsor and join us. So
when Kay Conley was asked about nuclear, she said she was for nuclear.
Yes, this, so I was going to, Kate Connolly's,
But not, there were nobody asked specifically about it.
I specifically asked her some questions about nuclear, and she did the political thing and said, I'm anti-Indian Point, but I believe nuclear has to be part of the climate change solution. And when I asked her about nuclear waste, this is where it got scary. She said, well, AI will figure it out. And then I spent over an hour trying to educate her. I was putting in touch with her directly. And then at the next couple of meetings that I saw her at, she refused, the Sierra Club held a debate, and she would not take a position on nuclear when asked directly by the Sierra Club. Now she's the candidate. We have to accept that she's the candidate. Right. We, as the constituents who are I don't know if anyone here is voting for Lawler, but I think most people are against opening Indian Point here. We need to really educate Kay Connolly that this really matters to us, that this is the elephant in the room in this district, and that her position is untenable. She's got to come out and accept the education that we've experienced at Indian Point. She wasn't here during all that time that we were in the process of closing Indian Point. She is unaware of the issues, really, of what's going on, and she's very much about, she believes in the greenwashing of nuclear. So that's what we need to do.
Can I make an additional point on that topic? A lot of times it doesn't really matter in this case who the nominees are, whether it's the Democrat or the Republican, because what invariably happens is that the industry is going to chase the politician and try to get them on side. We've seen them do that with Hochul. We've seen them do that with both Democrats and Republicans.
They spend money on both
So
sides.
yeah, it really is like our strategy is basically the same, which is that we need to convince the decision maker that they need to go our way, or we make it politically, impossible for them to go anywhere but our way. Lawler is the kind of, like I mentioned, it's a grift. Like, these are people trying to raise money. These are private equity folks trying to raise money from the stock market. Both political parties are incredibly vulnerable to their money. So yeah, we like, whether it's crypto, whether it's AI, whether it's nuke, whether it's gas, we just have to like lobby and lobby and lobby and never stop.
Yeah, with campaign finance, bad situation's gotten even worse. Apparently the Supreme Court came down with a ruling. I haven't looked at the details. It does appear to lift any kind of limits on coordination between political parties and guess 501c4, so basically the majority of the Supreme Court is saying if you have money, you can pretty much, do whatever you want in terms of influencing elections.
Yep.
And then another, I think we might have gotten into it, another case that came down with, Trump versus Slaughter with the one we were talking about earlier, where the president is, according to the Supreme Court, has authority to hire and fire pretty much everyone in every agency, interestingly enough, except for the Federal Reserve. I guess, I don't know the logic for that, except that the logic is money. But the Federal Reserve, they're like, oh, you can't mess with them.
Do what you want, but don't touch my bag.
Yeah. What I'm concerned though is about any kind of attempts to preempt or destroy kind of federal state, what they call concurrent or dual sovereignty, so to speak. I mean, that's part of my concern, because at Indian Point, because of the agreement, some of the local governments have to sign off on any new nuclear at the site. Yet the Department of Energy Secretary Chris Wright and Mike Lawler felt confident enough to say we're going to put Indian nuclear here at Indian Point. The only way they're going to be able to do that is to destroy the power of local people to have a say-so in these matters. And that's my concern.
That goes to the tritium, the Save the Hudson bill, because right now that's in the court, the appellate court, which has basically said that the state didn't have the right to make that law because they're preempted. What was missing, what has been missing in all that conversation, is that the state has always had the right to protect the river, and that nuclear pollution, the NRC's only authority, is on a licensed site. So the second any of that radiation leaves a licensed site, leaves Indian Point, for example, it's under state authority, not federal authority. So that's what the fight is right now in the courts, and we'll see what happens. We don't have much hope. That's my feeling.
We can take one or two more questions.
Have you considered at any point, forcing the state to resume evaluating the radiological data it collects around each nuclear site?
Well, that's a very good question, because New York State is the only state that in the late 60s,
In
early
82.
70s, they did a big survey, environmental survey around Indian Point. So we have the baseline, and what we really want to push is for an update on that, because
They
it's
still
so
collect it.
important. What?
They started collecting data in 82.
Right.
They've collected it every year.
But they put
When
it away.
Pataki became governor, he wanted to kill the program entirely. His advisors said, you can't do that in case there is a mistake, an accident, we're going to need this data. All right, so he said, continue collecting the data, but he ended the annual analysis. So if you are, and it's public information, so if you want to know what sort of radiological stuff is emanating from around Indian Point, for example, and the tests include fish, rodents, and insects and air that they collect around the plant and on the site and around it. You can get that data, but you have to analyze it yourself. You just get volumes of it because they stopped producing an annual analysis in '85.
I think
And
you're right.
if
That's what
you
we
have,
do.
well, I have the last book that they had. But I've never seen any group try to force the state to resume analyzing their own data. And I'm just curious as to, since you all are talking about data, has that ever occurred to you, or is that something you want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but it comes up often. The question is, what group can analyze it? Because the Department of Health, we have a governor who doesn't want to analyze it, I'm sure.
The Department of Health has a radiological department But the
Like,
ones
they're
that
not
collect it.
analyzing, it has to be under the governor telling them to do it, right?
Right,
So
they
we have-
collect it, they just don't analyze it.
I think it's a great point, and it's something that should be done, the data's there, it's sitting in file cabinets, right?
Well, no, I just want to follow, she has a question, but the legislature has the power to just to analyze the data itself. I mean, it's that simple, sometimes people forget that. They have broad autonomy, they have committees, there's a committee that I'm sure has jurisdiction over that. So that would be pressuring those leaders, who
That's a
maybe
very good
have a
point,
different
and
dynamic.
As we're trying to.
And
get
saying,
more
hey, we wanna know what's
moratoriums
going on, this is, we wanna know what's going on.
What about the DOB? I mean, why don't they come back?
DOB doesn't seem to have any actual power. It has no authority. I mean, we have the, right? We do have, the Department of Health is on the DOB, but they don't seem to have any power. And you're right, it has to be through the legislature, has to force them. So we're trying now to get a nuclear moratorium, and probably should be added as a platform of that is, we have the data. We also have the data for the upstate nukes. I mean, all that data is being collected. So it should be analyzed again. And before any nuclear reactors are built in New York State, that's what we have this data. Let's understand it first.
What's the
That would be
testing
the safe thing
in
to
this
do.
area right around where the school is? I haven't seen anything about that.
The school district was supposed to contract with an independent agency to do baseline air quality testing. It's something that we come back to the board with every single year. I don't know what the status of that is.
The air quality is tested by the state, but that data then is filed away. And so if your school district wanted to analyze it themselves or or hire somebody to go through it, the data's available.
They hired somebody to actually test the schools themselves, but I don't.
But then it was supposed to be analyzed by
Yeah, I don't know
a
what
government
that-
agency who bailed and said they weren't gonna analyze.
For example, the upstate nuke test nuke testing plant that was finally closed, and they monitor that as well, and they have found plutonium in the fat of deer in the area. All right, but health department doesn't give hunting licenses, and they don't share the data with other departments. So there are hunting licenses given every year for deer that have plutonium in their fat.
And same with the fish.
Yum.
They only test the bones of a handful of fish. And, they don't test the bones. They only test the flesh. And strontium-90 is not gonna be shown up in the flesh. It shows up in the bones. So some of the data is not valid, not useful.
It's considered a seasoning.
Part of the problem is not only do we not know, we don't even know that we don't know, and we don't want to know. And I think, as an example of that is, there was a really good film called Nuclear Savage about the irradiation of the people in the Marshall Islands there because of the nuclear tests there in the 1950s. You might have seen the movie Oppenheimer. I think Louis Strauss was the bad guy because he got Oppenheimer's security clearance taken away, which is bad enough. But where he was the real bad guy was he was the head of the Atomic Energy Commission, where they deliberately scheduled tests, knowing the weather patterns are going to have a lot of fallout over the Marshall Islanders. And a lot of them got sick, and they actually had to invent new words in their language for babies with birth defects. They called them jellyfish babies. And so they had all these tests that they ran on people. They brought them to, I think, the University of Chicago. I think it was Project 7.1, which is classified. So they never released the results of that. However, when they did have money they appropriated for tests, what was that? They said that they didn't have enough money to complete it, so they stopped it before.
That was the health department, so there was, I think it was 2015 or 15, the federal government said we need to do an evaluation, a health evaluation about nuclear reactors, and they went to the national, I'm losing the name of things, the National NIH, what is it, that Institute of Health. And they came up with a whole protocol to do it, and they spent about $7 million, and then they canceled it. They started doing it, and then they canceled it. And Dave Lockbaum, who's on the DOB, this is a big thorn in his side, because he said the amount of money it would have cost to finish the tests would have been 2 or 3 years, which we're well past now, and it would have cost how much they spend on an annual party that the NRC throws themselves every year. So he gets very angry about that.
I want to get into our action steps now, just so we can take some time to write some postcards together, and then if we have some time at the end, we can ask some more questions. So up here on the board, you see the first action step I have is calling Governor Hochul. On the next slide, I have a number that you can take a picture of, or you can call now. You'll be connected to her office. Tell her that you oppose new nuclear development in New York, and also tell her to sign the Indian Point cessation mitigation bill that Tina mentioned earlier, that our awesome state senator Harcum and Assembly member Dana Levenberg helped get passed in the state legislature, and that's going to help to get really well-needed funds to this district here. Then we can also send comments to the Public Service Commission. So we mentioned before that the Public Service Commission, they sort of set the rates for utility companies and how approve their rate increases. And right now they are evaluating Governor Hochul's nuclear plan to build new nuclear in New York. And we want to send comments to them and say, don't build any new nuclear plants in New York. And those comments are due before August 10th. So on the index cards, we'll make sure that everyone has an index card, but you can write your comment and then I'll collect them. Just put your name and address, so the governor knows that you're constituent, so it can be recorded. And then I will take them all and submit them to the Public Service Commission. And there's about 25 or so of us here. If you can each get 3 people or so to also write a comment. I have a QR code actually on the next slide I'm going to show you. Then we can get over 100 people to send comments to the POC and to Governor Hochul's office. The last one is staying up to date on next upcoming actions regarding nuclear and how we can fight back against nuclear. You can text no nukes to 23321. So this is the number to call Hochul. You can write it down, take a picture, send it to your friends. The number is 877-796-1948. And when you call the number, you'll hear a message, and then you'll be connected to the governor's office after hearing that message. You say your name, where you're calling from, and you remember me. tell the governor that nuclear is dangerous. We don't want it here at Indian Point. We don't want it anywhere in New York. And okay, this is the QR code for those of us that like to take. You can just hold your phone camera up to the screen, and then the link will pop up. This is an easy action to take to submit a comment to the Public Service Commission. It'll just pop up, and then the message will be filled in for you. You can add additional information that you'd like to say in your message, and then send it off to the governor and the Public Service Commission.
You actually have a case number for that?
Yes. Are we?